What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Verified AMA. I'm your host, Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and I go live every single day that the markets are open from 12:30 to 1:15 to answer your questions. How's everybody doing today? So I know I said all last week and stuff that we were going to change our format, but that I was just told by my production team that's not actually going to happen until next week, right? So you're still with me just the same this week, but next week we should have a change and you'll all get to meet Liz. Okay. With that being said, guys, while you're here, I just want to ask you to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. It means the world to me that you take time out of your day to spend time with me. But anyways, what type of questions do you guys have for me today? You can scan this QR code and let me know what questions you guys have. All right, Mike says, hi, Lawton. What do you think? Do you think WDC, STX, OKLO are good shorts at these levels? Let's go ahead and take a look, huh? Let's see those tickers again. And if you just saw me on Trader's Edge Crypto, hello again. What's going on? So WDC, right? Talking about WDC. That's not it. WDC. So WDC, my shortable level. You see how I get this? 1, 2, third pivot through all the previous all-time highs. My shortable level on WDC will be up here around, let me scroll out a little bit, around 114.50, right? That's my target there on WDC. All right. That's my target there on WDC. Right here around $114, $115. Okay. As far as STX, what I chart a short there on Seagate. Yeah, Seagate has been absolutely a monster. I mean, you know, you could say this thing is due for a pullback one. So depending on where it closes this week, you could have a time count. Right, that's another bearish signal. But for me, I'm probably going to hold off. I would probably hold off on entering until I saw a reversal pattern, right? If you wanted to, you can start a small short position, right? But you have to put the stop here, right? Let's say you want to short it, and let's say you're looking for a move down here to around 195, 196. Say you're looking for 15% move in your direction. I would probably put a stop out just to protect yourselves in case it goes against you. Maybe 5 to 10% out of the money, so you maintain a good risk to reward ratio on this STX, right? So let's say you wanted to put a stop 5% out of the money, around 242, 243. That's likely where I would stop out. So you could enter here. This is your target, and this is your stop, right? And you're kind of protected. As far as OKLO is concerned, yeah, OKLO is kind of a monster as well, right? It had this beautiful kind of upsloping trend line that we ran into, supposed to be what was supposed to be resistance. And let's take a look at the charts to see if it ultimately was resistance. And you saw that it did end up hitting here and did end up falling about 1.6% at its most from that level. So I'm not sure if I would consider it, a great level to short right now, right? This trend line, of course, was broken. If we take back a look into this, you're honestly looking for some kind of reversal signal, right, on OKLO, right? Similar with that last chart. I just took a look at STX. It looks like a good shortable level. So if you do short this, right, I would say You can enter a short here. Let's say you look to cover here at this gap fill around $22. Where's you're going to be your stop out? I'd probably likely stop out probably 10% around the money, around 150, basically a pierce of 150, right? I'd probably stop out if I were to enter a short on OKLO right here, right? That way you maintain a good risk to reward ratio while making sure you're covering at support, right? And for this, like it's totally reasonable for the for OKLO to come back here. This is just the gap fill from literally Thursday, so it would not be surprising, even though it seems like, oh my gosh, this is like 23% away. Price was there on Thursday, not too far away. Jessica says, good afternoon, Lawton. What's up, Jessica? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me. Thoughts on STZ on a dividend play? Let's take a look, huh? STZ for dividend play. Yeah, it does pay a dividend. Constellation Brands is quite a bit down, right? You're talking about 51% from its highs. I actually had a level of support right here. 131, basically a pierce of 132, 131.75. That was actually a level that I was going to consider buying it, right? After I got that alert, I was going to consider buying it for my service, the dividend trader. You can see my alert is on there right now. So I didn't even notice that it like kissed it, right? There's like hundreds of stocks out there, so it's hard for me to say. So I like the chart, right? Of course, but now that we've gone ahead and got so close to my level, I'll probably look for an entry a little bit lower, maybe around 130, pierce of 130. I'll lower that alert down because we got so close, right? My entry for a dividend trader long was literally, you're talking 8 cents away, 8 cents away. So close on STZ. But I mean, I still like it, right? Still a decent company. Let me pull this out a little bit. Let's see their dividend. Paying about $1, 3%. Let's see here. So they're paying about a 3% dividend per year, right? Which is not too bad, right? And as you guys know, in my dividend trader service, I don't short anything. I just go long companies, good companies that are at lows of the charts that even if they go against us, I can keep collecting dividends from them. Nathan says, good morning. What do you see in the Bitcoin chart? Absolutely. Are we headed to the scene of the crime or headed lower? For me, you have a beautiful break of kind of like a trend line here, right? For me, on Bitcoin, my target right now is around 106, 107 to 106, if not lower. You're going to have to get past this low pivot here around 107. That's going to be key level of support on Bitcoin. And if it continues to fall lower, this 106 level is going to be key to keep Bitcoin afloat. Of course, you have this key pivot down here, basically a pierce of $100,000. Also going to be a great level of support for Bitcoin. Of course, it's easy to see this, right? When you see this, you're like, oh, we're headed straight down. But that's not usually the case, right? Things rarely move like that. If I go to any crypto chart right now, though, they pretty much all have head and shoulders patterns. Look at this head and shoulders pattern. XRP had the same big candle. And these are old trades that I had put in. Like all of them had this big red candle, big red candle, big red candle, right? Quadruple J says, good day, my friend. What's up, Jeff? It seems like Rivian has negated its bear flag. Let's take a look. Okay. Especially if it closes above Friday's high today. Looks like it will likely. Does this chart look bullish to you now? If so, what levels are you seeing? Double top around 117. Let's take a look. Yeah, Rivian, really beaten down. It's a decent company, right? They make good cars from what I've heard. what I have is they're kind of trading on this kind of wedge pattern. Look how beautiful this wedge is. So you have data point 1, 2, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. This is a beautiful, beautiful pattern forming on this chart. My level of resistance is going to be the third hit of this downsloping trend line. Yes, you could target double top around $17 for resistance, but I think you're going to run to this trend line first, right? About 10% higher, around the mid 16s, right? That's where I'm looking for resistance here on Rivian. Rivian. I'll throw it here. But does it look bullish? I mean, it doesn't really look anything. You have this kind of upsloping trend line. Not inverse head and shoulders because it's upsloping, not downsloping, right? So you could see a pullback here, but I think it likely wants to test this kind of downsloping trend line. So I think it could feasibly get up here to the mid 16s, then run to that trend line, and then potentially see a pullback. That's what I see on the charts. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Michael says, how are you going to get out of the SOX trade? Yeah, so SOX has continued to move lower, right? Particularly today, NVIDIA announced a collaboration with OpenAI, right? So SOX continues to drop lower. I still have more money to add to it, right? But the thing is, if you're in the camp that you believe that the markets, including the SOXX, the SMH, all these levels are favoring a pullback, a move lower, then you're going to short the markets, right? NVIDIA is the most shorted stock in the world right now, right? And you can check that out. So you might see some short squeezing, right? Definitely feasible, right? So now, is that going to take? What is it going to take to see a correction, particularly in the semiconductors? Right? We saw the United States ban specific sales to China. We saw China ban Chinese companies from buying these specific stocks, and then it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, how are you going to deal with that, right? How like why isn't it going lower, right? So right now, it will likely take an overall market correction before seeing a significant move up in stocks. Not that it can't happen, but considering, let's take a look. NVIDIA doesn't have earnings for 58 days. So we're looking at a 2-month period from now and like earnings season, right? AVGO is in 80 days. AMD is in 43 days. So we're looking for a month and a half of time before these semiconductors start reporting their earnings, right? So that will likely be the next catalyst, unless there's something said at the next FOMC meeting that could cause a pullback, right? Or some sort of unforeseen circumstance like Liberation Day, whatever it is. But we know that the current administration really likes the stock market and is doing everything he can to kind of keep the stock market prices up. Right. So now, are we going to see a correction? Does that mean our correction is going to be even harder, or does that mean we're not going to see a correction at all? Right. I would say that the markets favor a pullback, but that's just what probabilities dictate. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. Wes says, thoughts on dividend-paying stock JJSF. Let's take a look, huh? JJSF. Dividend-paying stock, J&J Snack Foods Corp. Let's go out to the weekly if this will load. Yeah, I mean, this stock is trading quite a bit down from its highs, about 50% down, right? Has already came below their COVID lows, right? So where's the next level of support for JJSF? You're having levels from 2015 down here, and that low that you mentioned at 2016. So yeah, I anticipate a bounce from those levels potentially, and a break of $90. However, that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to bounce there for this. And you have this nice downsloping trend line. So you want to see a break above this. You want to see a move above this. So anywhere below 97 to below $90, you're likely to see a move, a bounce here on JJSF. But for me, I'd like to see more price action. This is not a company that I have personally traded before. I'm too familiar with. I guess they make candy. Pardon me. This is likely not something I would consider for my dividend trader unless it reached this level down here, the sub 90 region. I'll set an alert down there. If it does come down there, then I'll potentially get in this for a long. Yeah, Michael, that's a great question on gold. So here's the thing, right? Usually, right, gold and the stock markets trade almost inversely of each other, right? When the stock market kind of falls, you kind of see money start to rotate into gold, right? When the stock market's doing well, you likely see money moving out of gold and move into stocks. But we're at a very interesting time in the economy where both gold and the stock market are trading at all-time highs, right? So here's the thing, and I've talked about this previously on gold, right? On gold is at all-time highs. I'd be careful if you're shorting this, just because I believe the markets are due for a correction, right? And if that happens, I expect gold to stay strong or continue moving higher, right? And if that does, if that is the case, sorry, let me turn off my sound, guys. And if that does happen, markets do pull back in gold, continue to move up. So that's why I'm not personally shorting gold. But you could take a look at the gold chart and say that, wow, this thing is so far up, it's coming into some levels of resistance. It favors a move lower, right? And I could totally agree with that. But I'm personally not too interested in touching gold here. All right, Sam says, Lawton, I'm about to go all in stocks. Yeah, this is getting out of hand. Yeah, it is absolutely crazy, right? And again, stocks had another move up today because NVIDIA did announce a partnership with OpenAI. Absolutely. Tommy says, thanks for all you guys do. Absolutely. Hope you had a good time in Miami. I went to Miami to visit my grandpa and my father, spend some time with them. My flight, I was supposed to fly in yesterday. My flight was supposed to leave at 10:30. Got delayed to like 11:45. And then there's something wrong with the plane. Then we finally boarded the plane at 2 a.m. And then they said the flight was canceled. There are no more flights. So I rented a car and just drove straight to Tampa from there, about 4 hours. And I got in this morning at like 6 something, 7 something. And then I don't know. I slept like an hour or two, then came to work. So I'm running on fumes here, guys. So I apologize if I'm not giving you the energy you want, but let me know. And I can kind of turn it up a little bit. Tommy says, I have a long price on SMCI with an average of $40.62. Absolutely incredible average. That's great. You're in the money, about 18%. Good job. Is $57 a level, this gap fill? Good take profit area. That's good. I think you're going to run into resistance here, just around this $49 level. This is the high pivot right here from after the fall, right after the fall off of earnings, right? So what I would do, right, and of course you're free to do whatever you want. This is just what I would do if I was in that position. I'd elect to take half out of them, take half off the table, around $49, right? And then what you can do is put a trailing stop. So as price continues to go higher, you can kind of add a level. You can slowly move this stop up. So if it comes down, you're filled and you cash in, right? Of course, that is the big glaring gap fill, $57.27. That's the level you want to cover at. But is it going to hit there? Not necessarily, right? Now, is it going to go there? Not necessarily, because it fell off of something as bearish as earnings, right? Not only did it double miss, it probably had bad guidance, poor guidance. You have to remember the earnings and the earnings call was so bad that SMCI fell 17%. So it's moving up, presumably on, there's no real news why it would move up so much, right? Other than NVIDIA having a collaboration with OpenAI. But not sure why that would particularly impact SMCI. Scott says, hello, Lon. Does Chegg look bullish? Yeah. So first things first, you kind of have inverse head and shoulders, kind of pseudo head and shoulders, right? Kind of, right? Like it's slightly upsloping, but you could call it that. I don't love it, but you know, this measured move up. This is pretty much a flat slope, right? I don't love it because it's not down sloping, but you could still take a look at that. With the move, measured move up to up 42%, right? Here's what you could do on a break of that. You could enter along and just put a stop out level. Let's say you enter along here, and let's say you target a move at least to $2.20. Then you can just put a stop out, put a stop right here, around $1.56. Risk 10% to make 20%. Good risk to reward ratio. Chad says, hello, mate. I hope you had a great weekend. Yeah, it was interesting. Work from home, so able to watch live. Awesome. Thanks for being here, Chad. Please, could you give me some swing long ad entry or ad levels for VFC, dividend paying stock? Absolutely. So VF Corporation, not something I'm currently in. I'll tell you where, if I had to, I would enter it, as well as my positions to potentially add. I'd probably look to enter here at the gap fill around $13.68. Let's check their dividend quickly. 2.5%. Not a great dividend rate, but it's okay, right? Dividend paying stock, so you don't mind it going against you a little bit. You have another gap fill here, around $11.78. And then probably again here. This would probably be my plan on this. Right, enter here, potentially add here, and then a potential add around a piece of $11, right? You add here, your average is here, right? And then if you add here, you're on 14.5, your average will be somewhere around here. Probably somewhere around here, right? Which is where you kind of want to be, around that $12 level. So this is my entry level on BFC, as well as my ads. Yeah, Michael, that's a great question. It depends. That's something you're going to have to ask Gareth. Gareth and I trade a little different, right? We have different trading strategies, right? I'm a little more conservative of a trader than he is, but he's also been doing this a lot longer than me. I do have a swing trading service, Michael. I play dividends, so I don't short anything. I never short anything. I just go long, and I collect dividends over time. Adam says the head and shoulders pattern on the daily on Cardano officially broke. Let's take a look. Yeah, so you're talking about this nice head and shoulders pattern. Did it officially break? Yes, it did. You're talking about this head and shoulders pattern. Well, we want to see it close below. It looks like it's probably going to close below, but you never know, right? You could see a late day rally. But yeah, this is pretty much a clean break of that beautiful head and shoulders pattern. Let's go ahead and find that measured move down here. down here. About a move down 35%. I'll be looking for a move at least 17% here on Cardano from that break. My downside targets, yeah, I mean, the target, I would probably target somewhere here around 70 cents to a break of 70 cents. Right, 60 cents, you're also going to see a lot of support all throughout here around this, around 60 cent level. But at around 70 cents, I'd cover probably half of my position, and I'd look for a little more on the rest, right? You could see it play out. But here's the thing to remember. Head and shoulders patterns, inverse head and shoulders patterns, while they have huge measured moves, they don't necessarily have to go the entire way. And oftentimes don't. Oftentimes don't. Just going to learn on NVIDIA. See what NVIDIA is doing. NVIDIA is now at all-time highs. Just hit the new all-time highs, pulling back slightly, right? Take a look at that. Yeah, just hit new all-time highs. Off of this really bullish news, up 4% with its collaboration with OpenAI. Yeah, John, that's a great question. What would you like me to say, John? I'm open, transparent, honest. What would you like me to say? Do you have any specific question or any comments? Chad says, is there a valid inverse head and shoulders chart on the daily for end phase, ENPH? Yes, there is. Absolutely. That's the first thing that I saw. And my chart is super annotated, but it's no longer annotated. Let's take a look at this. So however you want to draw it, let's say, like both of these are fine ways to draw it, right? Let's just draw it like this for the sake of, this. You can draw it kind of like this, right? Basically this shoulder, right? Even though this shoulder is kind of ugly, like we all have that funny looking cousin, kind of weird cousin, or maybe we were the weird cousin. That's still valid, right? Still your cousin. Right here, a move up 32%. So that is a valid head and shoulders pattern, inverse head and shoulder pattern breaking now. It has never closed above the neckline, surprisingly, if you draw the neckline like this. So you kind of want to see a close above today, which it looks like it's going to, continuation. And I'd probably look to cover somewhere around here, this gap fill around $4, $45, $46, basically, about 18 to 19% higher from the break of that neckline. Be happy to do that. But that's awesome, Chad. Hi, Lawton. Is HBAR forming a bull flag or head and shoulders? Let's take a look. HBAR. So yeah, inverse head and shoulders here, absolutely. This is a valid inverse head and shoulders pattern, but never quite played out. It did play out, excuse me. I don't know why I said it didn't. It for sure did. All right, let's see that measured move. So it's not that it's forming one. It already formed one. In fact, it already played out, right? And look at that. Pretty much made almost the entire measured move. You're talking about 90% of that measured move. However, what's the rest of it? But now, I wouldn't say it's making like a bull flag. I would say that it's making kind of like a, however you want to draw it, kind of this downsloping bullish. Let me delete this. Bullish pattern here. You have this downsloping trend line. If you can get above it, favoring a move higher, you're looking for support here. And look, that's exactly where these double bottom or triple bottom, these pivots, these low pivots are the areas that you're expecting a bounce off of HBAR, and that's exactly where you did get it. 4% bounce to that, wow, on HBAR, right? But why is this happening? Well, the general crypto markets are seeing a pullback today. But this is what I'm looking at. So I wouldn't say it's a bull flag. I wouldn't say it's a inverse head and shoulders. If you're talking about a regular head and shoulders, I don't quite see that either. If you want to say it's an inverse head and shoulders like this, potentially, right? And then something like this, that's okay, but price cannot get lower than this line pretty much. If it gets lower, the shoulder goes below the head, and then it negates the inverse head and shoulders pattern, right? Negates it. And that neckline for that inverse head and shoulders would be somewhere around here. Okay. Sam says SPY is at 666 time for the 20% off. Yeah. Let's see if that's the number that we can get a pullback. 666. Here we are. Dean says, Target, my long position average is $89.50. It's a pretty good average there on Target. Here's where I'm looking for support on Target. Gap fill 1, 2, 3. So these are the levels on Target that I'm anticipating a bounce. Now, Target is something that I'm currently long. I'm currently long Target for a swing trade. And why? Because just look at the chart, right? Target, very well-known company, not at risk of bankruptcy, down about 67% from its highs. I'm long, just collecting a dividend. It's a good company. Last earnings, it was, even though guidance was down, still positive, still a double beat. So I'm not too worried, but these are the levels that I'd consider adding if I were at your average team. Peggy says, hi, Long, logged into the Bluefin platform, but don't see the promotion bonus you mentioned. Where can I find it on the app? Is it right for transferring money? Thanks. Yeah, you have to scan a QR code. Peggy, if you want, go to YouTube and check that last broadcast and scan that QR code. I think that's how you're going to be able to do it, just to get that futures bonus there, Peggy. And he says, hi, can you take a look at HIMS? Sure, it appears we have head and shoulders pattern. Let's take a look. If my calculations are correct, it might hit $63. And question, is there any way we can attach an image to our message? Thank you. Yeah, you can, Andy. You can you can send a picture to me by clicking this photo and click on download image. The camera on the top right, click on download image, and or not download, excuse me, sorry. Click this this camera says take a snapshot, copy the link, and then send it in the chat down below. Send that in the chat down below. Right. As far as HIMS, is it headed to $63? I have $64 as a current price target, right? This nice pivot high all the way back from its earnings. Basically right after its earnings on the beginning of August, $64 around my target. And he says, question, do you get paid a percentage of what you make for verified or on you set salary with bonuses? Thanks. I'm not on a set salary. Not on a set salary, but we do get bonuses. Pay structure is a little complicated to explain. But yeah, essentially a percentage of what we make for verified investing while trading. As well as bonuses. But it's like complicated. Juan says, hi, Lawton. How far up do you see NVIDIA headed? Yeah, NVIDIA monster. Absolute insane monster. My upside target for NVIDIA, it's not going to be pretty. It's pulling back from this all-time high. 205. 205. That's my. But yeah, around 205. That's like my upside target resistance for that. I mean, you can continue drawing trend lines, right? You can draw a trend line here. It might be a little closer. You could say that there's resistance coming maybe here around 189. But in my mind, I think they want to push it to 200 at least. But we'll see. Right here at 189, though, is my target. Michael says, hey, Lon, how do you decide between a day trade and a swing trade? Well, it's different. Day trading, you're going to go a little heavier relative to your portfolio, right? For swing trades, you're using a lot less. Like for my swing trades, like I'm putting 1% into any given position. So I'm going very light, very conservative. I'm looking at different, I'm looking at different percentage moves as my targets, right? For a swing trade, I'm looking for like 20%, 15 to 20%. For day trade, I'm looking for like 1 to 2% in my direction, right? So. Michael says up 5%, SPX up 20%. Here's the thing, Michael. Here's what I would challenge you with, right? So I agree that it's not the whole picture, but how would you explain it, right? It's difficult if you're in a swing trade, how would you show the estimated return in a service, right? If you have positions already open without giving away those specific positions, right? Are you calculating the current P&L on it daily and adding it and combining it? Or how are you going to do that? The only real way to that I believe to explain it well is you just show the closed trades. But no, I definitely see where you're coming from. I can see your point of view. 100% makes sense, right? SPX is up 20% last year. That's crazy, right? That's amazing. If you bought anything in April, if you bought anything since 2023, you would be killing it right now, right? If you bought any stock, pretty much, with market at all-time highs, absolutely. So definitely bull market, right? Dean says, how is KDP? Let's take a look at that. Keurig Dr. Pepper. This is another stock that I picked up for myself in a dividend trader. I love the level. This is down big off of news that Keurig and Dr. Pepper, a company that was once conjoined, are separating, right? Not really that bearish news, right? So don't really understand why this fall would come so much. Does pay a dividend, down 25% from that announcement. Just pay a dividend. So I like this trade. But if your average is $27, you're out of the money less than $1. I wouldn't be stressing about this. Out of the money 3%. In my swing trade, I'm also I'm out of the money like 4% or something. So very, 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 and I'm in a 1% of my portfolio, very, very conservative position on a good stock that's going to split into two companies. We're going to own both companies. On top of that, it's a dividend paying stock, right? So definitely not something I'm too worried about. Probably around this gap fill, I will likely look to add around this $24.50 level. Is likely going to be an ad for me on KDP, but this is something I don't mind holding on to. It's a good, well-known name. Keurig, everyone has a Keurig. Dr. Pepper, people love Dr. Pepper, but these are companies that are not going to go out of business. These are good, solid companies with good earnings, right? Good earnings that pay a dividend, right? And this is the type of companies I like to be in, right? Low risk, pay us out over time, and if it goes up, then it goes up. And then we'll sell for a profit. Cool Buddy says, hey, Lon, have a great week trading. Thanks so much, man. I wanted to ask, I've applied fibs on INTC. Absolutely. On the weekly chart, let's take a look. All right. Prices pull back significantly, and I guess good entry and exit long on this INTC. I'd look for $24. Scalp fill probably. Basically appears to $24, about 18% lower. Right? But that was just 2 weeks ago, literally 2 weeks ago. That's where I'd likely look to enter on INTC for a long. Before it coming out, Intel, right? Unlike the other semiconductors, down big, right? Everything else is at its all-time high. So you could see this as a catch-up trade. You could say that this favors a move higher, particularly when the United States is investing in INTC. Now, the ethic, whether that's ethical or not, is a little different, but yeah. Hey, Lon, how low can stocks go? If I was talking about, yeah, and here's the thing, right? Whenever you're in a trade, right? I go into my trades, particularly swing trades, with a max loss, right? I'm like, I'm not going to lose more. For example, $1,000, right? I just put my stop there, right? If you're out of the money on a specific stock significantly, right? You don't want to just add for no reason, right? You just be like, oh, I'm 15% of the money, I'm going to add. No, you either add at support, or you can easily just stop out and enter back at a lower level, right? Um, I'm currently in stocks, right? I'm out of the money decently, right? But I haven't deployed too much of my capital. Right now, it's sitting at about 7% ish of that portfolio, right? Is my allocation to SOXS, which is a pretty decent sized position. Don't get me wrong, right? But you know, if news continues to go like this, you could see it come down to like $5, right? But again, NVIDIA did pop up, made new all-time highs, and you can already see, right? You can already see a pullback, right? You can already see a pullback on NVIDIA. Hit that level, pulled back almost 0.7% off of that all-time high. Even on the 1 minute chart, you can take a look. Let's look a little deeper on NVIDIA. Making a head and shoulders pattern here on NVIDIA, right? On the 1 minute. If that happens, I expect stocks to move up, but that's of course only intraday. I still like the level in for a longer term, right? Martin says, do you see a WV pattern on Tesla on the weekly? Let's take a look. I see that you like this. I don't quite see a WV pattern. However, I do see this beautiful, guys, beautiful wedge breakout, consolidating wedge breakout, and it hit. Where did it hit? It hit this pivot top around 438 and pulled back decently, about 2%. That was the shortable level. That's the level if you're a day trader, you want to be shorting there, and that's the level that I missed. 545, 454. There should be resistance at this gap fill. Approximately 6% higher, around $400.54 should be resistance. John says, Lon, can you take a look at VKTX? Absolutely. Happy to take a look at this. Viking Therapeutics, yep. Had this kind of downtrend popped up. $28.24. This is the line in the sand. If you can break this, I'm looking for a move higher, at least to around $32. This previous gap fill. This is where I'm targeting a move to on VKTX. However, this is a kind of a small company, very, very volatile, right? Here's the thing with pharmaceuticals, right? Pharmaceuticals move so quickly. If there's good news, it moves up significantly. If there's bad trial, and God forbid someone dies on a clinical trial, stock's going to tank. Absolutely crushed. Juan, I probably, if you're only in a 1/7, I would cut it or add. Up to you. Overnight. Either cut or add. Michael says, hey, Lon, we have a weekly topping tail and hype. Let's take a look. Can you please suggest an entry for a short? Do we have a weekly topping tail? Sure. I mean, that's a pretty good level, no? It's a pretty great level, isn't it? You have kind of this. This nice upsloping trend line that it's trying to break. This is what I'm watching. For me, if I had a short, I'd look for that or a retrace and short it on a retrace, right? Break or retrace. Okay, that's how I would likely play hype USDT. All right. With that being said, I got to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much for joining me again. My name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and I go live every single day the markets are open from 12:30 to 1:15. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you enjoy this content, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps us with the algorithms. I really appreciate it. But if you have more questions you want to ask me, you can always send them to me on Twitter at Lawton Investing. My first name, Lawton, followed by the word investing. Be happy to answer any questions. You want me to chart something for me, anything you want, just send me a message. I'd be happy to reply to you when I can. Of course, when I can. All right. With that being said, guys, I got to head out of here. I got to go back to the trading room in like 15 minutes. So I'm going to take a small break and then move on. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for being part of the Verified Investing community. I'll see you later, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.